political system. A little bit more within our team group, because youth, of course, is our future. So the Young Dems here at Sparkman started, and this year we had the Teenage Republicans, which is exactly what you should actually have in every school. You should always have both sides. So this year we have a senior who has stage 4 liver cancer, and so Patrick wanted to do something to raise money, and so he came and asked me about the idea of a debate. So I thought it would be an absolutely great idea to just let them be a part of this process. Some people on the stage are not going to be old enough to vote next Tuesday, but they're still very passionate. So tonight what we're going to do is we polled some of the Sparkman kids to ask them what was important to them this election, regardless if they were going to be able to vote. And they decided taxes, education, energy, and welfare. So those will be the 4 topics that they will argue through this evening. I'm going to introduce Patrick Fitzgerald, who is the president of our Young Dems here at Sparkman. And Ms. Johnson's going to take the other half.
And from the Teenage Republicans, we have Chandler Shields, who's our president. Then they will have a minute for rebuttal from the other opponent, and then they will have 30 seconds for a qualifier.
Barack Obama is pro-family, pro-business, and pro-growth. Let me tell you why. He's pro-family because he cut the taxes of 95% of American families, and also the average middle-class family saved $3,600 because of that. Second, he's pro-business. Now, corporate profit rate has not been this high since 1901. The stock market has doubled in strength since Obama took over. Well, you might ask, what about the small guy? What about small businesses? 66% of jobs in America. Barack Obama has been their champion and has cut taxes for them 18 times in his first term. Now, I know Barack Obama did not have a lot to work with, other than the greatest economic meltdown in our time, also with the most unproductive Congress of all time in 2010. But even with that, he has been pro-growth, and he has created 5 million new jobs in this first term, and he'll do it in a second. Next, what direction do we need to go in? We need a progressive tax code for 5 to 10 years and pay the same rates that we paid under Bill Clinton, which is the only change is if you, in the top 2%, you'll pay 2% more in income tax. Middle-class families will continue to have their income taxes cut. Now, a lot of folks will say, well, there's a lot of people in the top 2% that create jobs. And that's right. I don't want to punish job creators. That's why we're going to lower the corporation tax to 28% so they can afford to bring jobs back into this country, back in the United States of America. Now, Barack Obama has done everything that he possibly can in his first term, and progressive tax code sounds great because there's more American jobs, there's more relief for middle-class families. That's because it is great, because every time we've had a progressive tax code, it has led to the greatest amount of growth and stability in our economy of all time, while the opposite can be said about a trickle-down economy or a trickle-down tax code that the Republicans are pressing in lately. So, I like to say that we need a progressive tax code, and we need it now.
Well, I think it's obvious the direction that we need to go in as a country.
We need to lower the taxes for all Americans, not just middle class, not just upper class, not just lower class, but for all Americans. This puts more money into the consumer's hands, so they can spend this money and stimulate the economy in the long run. This will lower the taxes for small businesses, which means they can create more jobs and put more people paying taxes. The American people stimulate the economy. The government doesn't. So doesn't it make sense to give money back to the American people and not money to the government? A tax increase only puts money back into the government, while a tax cut puts money back into the American people's hands. The tax increase that the other side proposes raises taxes on people making over $250,000. Now that sounds like a good idea, but only 1 out of 10 of those people that make over $250,000 a year are actually millionaires and billionaires. That means 9 out of 10 people that make over $250,000 a year are not millionaires. They're mostly small business owners. Now, my opponent said something about a tax cut for small businesses. I talked to a guy the other day named Greg. He owns a small business here in Huntsville, and we were talking about taxes. He has not seen one single tax cut for his company. All he has seen is more regulations and less people coming in because the American people are being taxed more and not having the money to spend into his business. Another tax they don't tell you about is Obamacare. This is a $500 billion tax that falls on the middle class. The middle class has to carry. How will raising taxes create jobs and stimulate the economy? Government will not and cannot run this economy. The American people can.
Whether you agree or disagree with a progressive tax cut, at least one thing can be said. And that's that you know the specifics of it and you know that it's going to be paid for. The same cannot be said about the tax code or the Bush tax code on steroids that the Romney campaign wants to put through. They say that they want a 20% across the board income tax cut. And they want to pay for it by just eliminating deductions. But a study came out saying that if you eliminate all deductions, it'll only pay for a 4% across the board tax cut. So what I don't understand is the Republican Party tends to brag on being the best for the economy, most fiscally conservative. I don't understand how that assertion can be made if we don't know where 75% of a new tax code is going to be paid for. And if he's already promised not to put it into the deficit, then somebody's got to pay the taxes on it. And that's going to be middle-class Americans. It's simple in this election. If you keep Barack Obama in office as your middle-class family, you have a break of $3,600, or you elect Mitt Romney and you have your taxes in the middle class raised by $2,500 to pay for the rich to get another break.
The tax code presented by Mitt Romney not only lowers taxes, like I talked about before, but it will eventually put more people paying taxes. So alongside of cutting deductions, more people as a whole will be paying taxes. Therefore, you'll have more revenue. Now, the new taxpayers that are created will be putting enough money to pay for the tax cut. If you taxed all the money from the richest 2% of the Americans, it would pay for 96 days of government spending. Now, does that sound like we have a spending problem, or does that sound like we have a taxing problem? To me, it sounds like a spending problem and not a taxing problem.
You hear from the Republican side this argument that every time you're taxed less, you're guaranteed to spend more. My question is, here in the state of Alabama, we're taxed less than any other state. Matter of fact, our property taxes are so low, if you doubled them, we'd still be 50th. So why is Alabama poor in that case? Because we're taxed so low, and our education system is funded solely through sales tax, which if we were spending more, we'd be selling more. Why is the education system trust fund broke as well?
Not only will the American people spend more if they're taxed less, they'll invest more. If you ask any smart investor right now in this economy, they won't make an investment because they're scared of where their money's going and what's going to happen with their money. Before 2009, when Barack Obama took office, people were investing very heavily. After he's taken office, those investments have slowed greatly, and we have seen a slowed economy, a higher debt, and a higher unemployment rate.
Move on to education now. Jesse, you get first dibs on this one. Okay. Jesse, how should we reform education in America and assist students in paying for college?
Well, I think it's obvious to anyone that goes to any high school in America that education is free. We have so many students dropping out. Actually, the national dropout rate is 28%. We can't have that. It's obviously a broken system. We need to not only invest in new technologies, but we need to invest into our teachers. Because our teachers are what is going to shape our students and help them to be functioning citizens that will contribute to society. New technologies will also help. It's a proven study that when you bring in new technologies to a classroom, that it will help the learner. It will help people learn. Now, here in Alabama, we have a 35% dropout rate. Inside that dropout rate, 48% is Hispanic and 46% is black. So not only do these kids come to school and drop out and eventually go into other things, but they don't have the mentors at home or in school to help them to go into college, get a job, and do things like that. I think we need to invest into our teachers, let them go to seminars and things like that, and then learn how to shape these young students to be functioning members of society.
Claire,
Well, a lot of stuff that we agree on, like new technology and better teachers, but you can't do any of that stuff if you cut funding. And that's what Mitt Romney is proposing. He wants to cut all non-discretionary funding or non-security funding by 5%. And that includes education. But he's also said that he would not cut education. So he's contradicting himself. And Barack Obama is proposing to raise education, funding for education by 2.5% so that we can pay for better teachers and for new technologies and all this stuff that we all agree that we need. And another thing about paying for college, and that's extremely important. And so Obama is proposing that we make it easier, or he's actually already made it easier to get loans by cutting out the middleman, which is the bank. And that has saved $600 billion that we can reinvest in Pell Grants and scholarships so that we can make it easier to go to college. And speaking of Pell Grants, if you don't know, is money provided by the federal government through colleges for lower income students. It's done through the Department of Education, which Mitt Romney has said that he would either make it smaller or combine it with other agencies, and it would be drastically different. And so the Department of Education, it distributes the money through colleges to students, and the max family income that you can have to be on Pell Grants, which Republicans have said that they would not be in favor of increasing funding to Pell Grants. The max family income that you can be on is $60,000, but the average family income is $30,000. So this is stuff that's desperately needed for lower income students to be able to pay for college. And so also the poverty line, if you don't know, it's around $23,000. So the average Pell Grant recipient is a little over the poverty line, but not much. These are extremely desperate people that need the money to pay for college. And so cutting the funding for education is not going to help our education.